Welcome back to the History Shelf. My name is Peg, and this is Martine. And we're here for our wrap up of the Miss Marple, the Marple a month for July. And it's
Yeah.
already August, middle of August. We apologize for the lateness. I started getting sick last week, so I didn't get this up on last Friday, but anyway, we are here to wrap up a Caribbean mystery.
Woo!
Did I say it right?
Caribbean?
Caribbean mystery.
Mm.
Um, by Miss Marple, not by Miss Marple, by Agatha
We've
Christie.
got a breaking
Um,
development.
Going with the same kind of color trend
Oh,
here.
is that what you did it, or is that just
It's fortuitous. Thanks for hanging out and thanks for waiting for this video. I know it's taken a while. For August, we're reading At Bertram's Hotel.
which is
So,
good?
yeah, so we're gonna have that hopefully by the end of the month, or at least be around Labor Day.
Mm.
Anyway, guys, a Caribbean mystery. Can I just say, so usually we start off with like first takes, like what was your impression? And I usually give a star ranking.
Mm-hmm. You do, yeah.
I'm giving this one a good 4 stars. I really enjoyed A Caribbean Mystery.
We're gonna have to. I say this every time. We're gonna have to. Sorry.
Then don't talk.
We're gonna have to keep track of your rankings.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I can recall each book and know. And I do rank them in Goodreads, so I do have them saved somewhere. So
I think a mirror cracked. You said 4.5.
no, I said 5.
5. Okay.
I said 5. So far, The Mirror Cracked was my favorite.
Oh, you know what? There was one thing I was supposed to look up.
Yes.
So I was looking up contemporary reviews of this book, and it was seen somewhat as a return to form after 2 disappointing releases.
Okay.
And I don't know what those 2 are, and I feel like I should have had that in hand to see if, at least, at the very least, if they were Marple releases. I want to say the chances were probably good they weren't, but
Yeah.
I should look that up. Anyway,
Yeah. So I didn't have a lot of notes on this one. I really breezed through it.
you did.
A Caribbean breeze.
No. No.
Sorry. All right. I'm always making bad jokes.
That's not true.
Not true. Thank you. Thank you for that.
It's just been a long week.
It has been a long week, and today's been a really long day.
I think it's been like a month of like, hey, thank God it's Friday and it's Monday. You know.
Yeah.
So it's been like that.
It has been.
Yeah.
We wanted to get this video shot tonight, though, because tomorrow morning at the butt crack of dawn, we're heading over to leave the premises. So there's no filming tomorrow because they are finally replacing our hail damaged roof.
Yeah.
So they came by today and stacked up all the shingles on the roof, and now the fun begins tomorrow. Now, we've heard the noise is hellacious, so
Yeah, the next door neighbor had to get a new roof. And so we were like, oh, okay, next time we're leaving. But the next time is actually us. So we're taking
yeah,
off. We're going to Chris.
we're going to my sister's house, and we're
Yep.
taking all 4 dogs. So thank you to Chris and Dave, my
In
sister.
breaking news, by the time you watch this, we won't be talking with Chris and Dave. And there'll be a perfectly good reason why. And it won't be anything they did. Let's just guarantee that.
The sound our neighbor told us, she goes, you can't stay there, that you've got to get out. So we're going to try to work away from home a little bit. It's going to be a little spotty. Anyway, sorry, we're just going to catch you up on stuff. So we needed to finish this video today, get this up, because I know you guys are waiting, and it's just been crazy. But anyway, a Caribbean mystery. I mean, I can start to go into the characters and stuff, but I do want to say one thing about the book that I thought was not disconcerting, but it was like, well, that's not really a true follow up to A Mirror Cracked,
I see.
because because in The Mirror Cracked, the way Agatha Christie wrote it, it made it seem like Miss Marple was like 94 years old and she couldn't even stoop over to pick up something in her garden.
Wasn't allowed to.
She wasn't allowed to. And people are like, keeping an eyeball on her at every waking minute. I'm like, oh my God, is she like, sounds like she's in hospice or something.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
then you jump over to A Caribbean Mystery, and it's like spring break, Miss Marple on spring break. And she's like,
no glue factory.
she's like
She's doing
Tripping through
the
the sands, like joining people on the
she's
beach.
doing salsa and the
She's hanging out at the
was
terrace
it
where the
the
dinner's. But
hello, can you go?
the rum, not the rumba, the oh man, limbo.
Limbo.
Yeah, but she was basically all over this place physically, which I was like, well, that is
Yeah.
that's not a retcon. That's
Yeah,
a
her
I don't know
tryst,
what that
yeah.
is,
Yeah,
but
her
it's not.
tryst with the cabin boys was interesting too. I wasn't expecting that.
I had to look. I wait for the smile. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't remember that part.
It was, I mean, it was
Um,
nice to see Marple back to form, but it wasn't consistent.
a little
Little
bit.
bit of a retcon or a reset.
Yes, it was. But I mean, I appreciated that she wanted to make her a little more active. So, having said that,
Yeah.
like noticing the discrepancy between the mobility of Miss Marple from Amira Cracked to A Caribbean Mystery, I have to say, I really enjoyed seeing her leading this investigation. So, this is a story where she's the one. I mean, you do have a mention of the Caribbean police force, like
Yeah.
the you know
The constable and
the constables.
or
So
was he a captain? Anyway,
or a captain, yeah. Um, so in other books, it's always one of the English detectives coming around and asking for her, whatever. But he's the one
yeah.
investigating. This time it was all Marple for the most part,
Yeah.
right?
Which was a nice juxtaposing of events in Mirror Cracked when she was like, tell me exactly what he said and exactly
Yeah.
how he said it. Now all of that resentment and not resentment, frustration that she felt, that impotence that she felt
Mm-hmm.
is now magically gone. She's all healed up and
Yeah.
she's Stella has her groove back, and
Jane has her groove back
she's
now.
hiding in bushes and she's
She's yes. Yeah,
all over the
that
place.
particular scene, I'm like, so she's maybe I read it wrong, but she was like, I'm gonna break off the heel of my shoe
Oh, that was funny.
and traipse around.
Yeah, I'm like, what's your plan of escape here?
And
She's
I'm
like,
gonna
well, actually, I don't.
traipse around Mr. Raphael's
I'm gonna
bungalow.
fall on the ground.
She was like laying down and
That's what I
listening
thought she was
outside the
too.
window. I'm
Um,
like, you're 98 years old. What's happening? And she's all like, I'm listening
I
outside the
fell.
window.
Like, I think a 5-year-old would come up with a better plan.
Yeah, but it
It's
was kind of enjoyable still.
fine.
It was a fun read. I like the environment was different.
Yeah.
So let's just get into it. Well, no, let me ask you, what's your ranking and what's your rating on this? What do you think of it overall before we actually discourse and dissect?
3.5. I say three and a
Three and a
half.
half. That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
I gave it four because I don't know. I liked that she was leading the charge in all of this, you know? So I kind of like that.
There was nothing wrong with the book. I so I just it wasn't it didn't have some of the ooze that I've really liked in other stories, just the Dolly Banshees and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Just
Yeah.
the extras.
Yes.
Just the extras, but I did love Mr. Raphael.
Oh, he was
And
great.
and
Yeah,
so
he was good.
that of course sets up Nemesis.
Right.
But that was the strength of the novel for me. Although it was nice to see Marple get her groove back, like I said.
It was nice to, and maybe it was the warm air and the sea
Hmm.
breezes. Who knows? But
Yeah, and there she is knitting. I was like, "What? Your hand, it's sweat, and the wool. Why would you do that to yourself?
yeah.
Your stitches would be slipping off your needles, and ah, anyway, didn't sound pleasant to me. But
Yeah, so it finds us, her wonderful nephew Raymond, the
yeah,
writer, has sent her off,
good old
Um,
Raymond.
yeah. And so she's did every book have a table of contents? I don't
Yeah,
recall.
I think so.
Really? Okay, I never noticed that before. So when we open, Miss Marple is God bless her, but she is keeping a gentleman called Major Palgrave, who is just a very chatty man, I think a very
Mm-hmm.
lonely man, wanting to try to redeem some of his past, youthful
Yeah,
glories by sharing stories that basically just bore the pants off everybody. And
he's got a very limited repertoire.
yeah, yes, he does. And so in the beginning, she's like, "Oh boy, what can I do?" But you know what? She's a very uh,
But she's
decorous
also
when
used
she.
to his she says it as well, like this colonel is no different than that sergeant, than that captain, than
Yes.
so she knows who he is, and I think there's a familiarity to that.
Yes. And what jumped off the bat for me with this story is I remember writing it down here as one of the early stories here when Major Palgrave is going on about things.
Hmm.
And Miss Marple is, kind of looking at the world going on around her.
Hmm.
And she has these like internal soliloquies about just the changing times, right?
Again, that's a recurring theme with the development as well, right? So we've heard more and more about that.
More and more, and now we know from the way she's talking, this is definitely in the 60s.
Hmm.
Because, and this I thought was really wild. She starts talking about how sex. She mentions
Oh,
sex in the first
and
couple
the
of
lack of
chapters,
marriages,
lack of
but the
marriages,
abundance of christenings.
and all
Hmm.
of this seems to be said without any type of judgment. She is just an observer.
Yeah,
She's not, she's just like, well, that's how they do it these days.
she
And
kind
she
of,
gets on with life,
yeah, yeah. She judges the reverend or the vicar who assumes that she doesn't know what sex is. She's
Yes,
like,
yes.
you
Mm.
know,
So, and then I also really enjoyed the part that, what is this? Okay, so on page 23 of my copy.
hmm.
See, I recognize myself in Miss Marple at this
Mm,
point because Miss Marple, she's in the Caribbean,
mm,
and she is really just not impressed. She just really kind of misses good old jolly England with its rain and its gardens.
yeah,
Um, but like this says right here, um, yes, here we go. The fruit on the island, thought Miss Marple, was rather disappointing.
yeah.
It seemed always to be pawpaw. What's pawpaw? Remember
Some
P-A-W?
tropical hair-like thing.
Okay.
I think Baloo sang about it in the Jungle Book.
Yeah, and she says if she could have a nice apple now, but apples seem to be
It's such a
unknown.
British way of thinking.
She's
Like
like, I just want my Yorkshire pudding.
she's like sitting in paradise, going, "I wish it was grey and raining.
Well,
I wish my
yeah,
central heating was on,
she's
so I can
being
eat my
I
half-cold sausages." And
appreciate her honesty. Because I
mm,
am not a beach person. I've never been wowed
then you
by
should have said it to
beaches and
Raymond to begin
oceans
with.
and swimming in oceans and being nibbled on by various creatures in the no, no thank you.
Well, this after Shark Week as well, so there's no way we're going to agree that that sounds
No.
like a good idea right now.
No, no.
But I
And
mean,
I've watched so many horrific YouTube videos of people
who watched them?
listen only because you have to know the enemy, and the enemy is shark.
Shark.
Always.
Yeah. Okay.
Always
Well,
shark.
but I think if Marple didn't like beaches, she should have said something.
Well, that's true. And then she said this right here. Now that she had been here a week, she'd only been there a week, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Miss Marple had cured herself of the impulse to ask what the weather was like. The weather was always the same. Fine. No interesting variations. Now,
Yeah.
this was me as a kid when I had to live in Florida. I was a kid, I had no say in the matter. I hated it. I hated Florida. There was no change in the seasons. I didn't like the beach, didn't like the sand, didn't like the bugs, didn't like the humidity. And so
Didn't
I
like your stepfather. All
didn't
of the
like my
above.
ex stepfather at
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
time. So it all sucked pretty hard. So let's just say don't have any good feelings for that. And I don't want to live anywhere where there's not a change in the season. So good on Miss Marple. I appreciated her stout, old Englishness in this. She's like, look,
She's.
what, you didn't have
I
any?
mean, it's kind of British snobbery in a way, but whatever. She's like, "Oh, I wish it was raining." Go away. No, you don't.
Okay.
If it was raining, you'd be annoyed that it was raining.
Right. So anyway, so our cast of characters, we've got Major Palgrave, and they're at this resort run by Tim and Molly Kendall,
Yes.
who are a young couple. They're trying to make a go of this resort, whatever you want to call it, hotel.
Hmm.
Um, they've been doing it for a few years now, and
Not that long.
well,
Not that long in that location. I feel
I
like
thought it was
it was.
because we're now we get to the other two couples who come in and somehow seem to be friends with or have known the Kendalls for a little longer than. That's why I'm saying for at least a couple of years because we've got the Dysons. We've got Gregory Dyson and his wife Lucky, and then we have, and these are birding people, right? Or insect
You
people.
see this tail?
Can you see Roxy's frog legs sticking out on either side? I wish my legs could do that. There we go.
She's in a showdown with Goldie.
They're stealing the
I
show. This
don't
is
know how
what they
this will
do.
go.
So, and then the friends, were they birding people or insect people? Or butterflies? I don't know.
But there was some insects in there too.
Yes. So then you had the Hillingdons, Colonel Hillingdon and Evelyn. I've
Mhm.
always pronounced it Evelyn, but one of the adaptations said Evelyn.
Mm.
So who knows? Um, but they're like a Martine likes to refer to them as the swingers.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. So yeah. So when Marple sees them first, and I think somebody else comments on this too. Maybe Raphael's assistant. There seems to be some question of who goes with whom within the foursome.
They just pulled the blanket off Goldie, and now Goldie
Oh,
is being tried. Can you? This always happens.
hold please.
Okay, we've taken care of that problem.
Yeah, all the dogs are still alive. That's
Yes.
fine.
So we're talking. So the Hillingdons, the swingers, whatever. It seemed kind of weird, but they
But
all
there's
know each
tension.
other.
There just seems to be tension there a little
There's
bit.
tension. So they're there, and Miss Marple is, kind of keeping track of just people watching, which is what she does. A couple of other people at the resort are Cannon Prescott and his sister, I think
They were
Joan.
my two favorite.
And
Well,
I
aside from
Joan.
Mr. Raphael.
Mr. Raphael,
Yeah.
then Mr. Raphael, who is a curmudgeonly rich man in a wheelchair, who with his secretary Esther
Esther
and
and
Jackson,
Jackson. That's
his
right.
personal masseuse, and
Slash bodyguard slash
everything. Just pick me up and carry
body
me.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his body man,
Yeah.
his Batman.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hmm.
So they're there. But anyway, so something's going on when Major Palgrave is telling to Miss Marple at this dinner
He's
or
going through one of
reception.
his stories.
Yeah, going through his wallet. Would you like to see a picture of a murderer? And going looking at his snaps, and he's about to show her something, and then whoa, sorry about that. Then he kind of freezes when he sees some bunch of people are walking up behind Miss Marple, and then it hurriedly stuffs it back in, right? Like, and they changes the subject, and you're like, okay, well then
Mhm.
something's up there, right?
Mhm.
So then the next morning, Miss Marple finds out that Major Palgrave has died,
Right.
and they believe it was his high blood pressure.
Well, okay, so a couple of things. One, I didn't like it that everybody already knew each other, with the exception of Marple. I was just having way too much George Lucas induced PTSD, like, oh, you went to
Right.
school with so and so, and oh, you used to date so and so, and oh, that's interesting because what you didn't know is that he's the first wife of the second cousin's bookkeeper's butcher. I didn't like that. Um, the other thing that happens when Palgrave dies, I think Kendall gives them the news, gives Marple the news. Yeah, she's upset. Miss Kendall is upset, but she immediately starts saying, "Oh well, high blood pressure, or accidental overdose, or didn't take his medicine, or age," which Marple takes personally.
Yeah.
Because everybody over 50 is now decrepit and done. And actually, I thought it was funny that Christy refers to Raphael as desiccated when she's talking about his, the skin hanging off his limbs and everything. Great word. But anyway, so that was my one grievance. But already there's a little bit of gaslighting, like, oh well,
Yeah.
but then Marple's like, but who told you that to begin with?
Yeah. How do
Who
you?
exactly what are the receipts here? Name
Because
your sources.
usually she knows, and a variation on the saying, the one who
Hmm.
smelt it dealt it.
That's one way to put it, honey.
It's a variation on
It's
that.
it's murder by farting. Yeah. And the killer is the one who dealt it, apparently. I think we've just happened upon a wonderful premise.
I think we did.
Yeah.
I think we could patent this.
Yeah.
Trademark it.
Yeah.
Murder by fart? Is that what you said?
Sure.
Let's just do it. Let's just make it happen.
Yeah.
That'll be an olfactory sensation.
Hmm.
Anyway, so Miss Marple's like, okay. And then you hear other people coming around repeating the same thing.
He
Like,
had a lot to drink. He shouldn't have been drinking,
and he
especially
had
with
high
the
blood
medicine.
pressure. And again, she's like, what is going on?
Right.
Now, we're also introduced to another side character here, Victoria, who is one of uh, the
The staff,
employees at
yeah.
the staff.
Yeah, she was great.
She's the one who actually, after poor Major Palgrave has been laid to rest, and everyone just assumes, yep, you know,
Well, there were a lot of lifestyle and health factors that
yeah, there didn't seem,
seemed like it was an unfortunate, but oh well.
didn't,
And the one thing I didn't like about Kendall, and this is why she was my my likely suspect, was because she was like, this is terrible for our reputation, instead of, oh,
yeah,
the poor man died.
yes.
So
So
there's a little bit of reputation, and what will they think of this place, and how will business be affected?
I have to say, from the beginning, I thought she was suspect.
Yeah.
But then when things started going really wackadoodle with her, I'm like, I
Don't
think
worry about
someone's
it.
kind of maybe setting her up for
Yeah.
something.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so Victoria approaches Gregory Dyson because I guess she's been cleaning the rooms. She knows what goes where. And is it Gregory Dyson that she tells, or she's the
She
one
just tells Kendall.
she tells Kendall those pills weren't there before.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What are you telling me? I'm saying that someone put them there."
But
Guys, we're trying
stop
to
it
do it.
now. Come on, it's every single time.
They love being on camera.
Ugh.
So, now who is the one that reveals this to Marple? Was it Victoria or was it? How does she find out that the pills were not? I didn't write that down. Um,
I know that she and Marple and Victoria have a nice relationship, or a nice friendship,
mm-hmm.
that is further elaborated on fictitiously in the adaptations. But I think in the book they have a nice rapport
Oh,
as well. And I'm just wondering, I can't remember, honey. I can't remember what that chain of
I
information
think
was.
it might have been Doctor. Remember? Okay, and here's Doctor Graham.
Right.
He's been in other books, yes.
He feels like he
I feel
has,
like he has, or at
but I
least
don't
he's
think
a.
he has. I don't think he has. But he
Yep.
played, the standard English doctor that we're used to seeing interacting with Marple.
Mhm.
And I think he's a little bit younger than some of the doctors that she's had. And what else? He
Yeah.
kind of indulges her, but she also completely manipulates him.
She says, "Can you find the snapshot?"
But she's like, oh, I had the snapshot, and
Yeah,
my last living relative was him, and I'd be so lost if, oh, you don't have it, oh, never
but
mind.
she did admit to him later. She's like, "Look, I lied to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is why, because I'm suspecting something." And he's like, "All right, wish you hadn't done that, but
Yeah,
okay, let's see here. Where
he
could this
takes it
lead?"
well.
She gets suspicious because the picture's gone.
Yes.
In the meantime,
Hmm.
Victoria feels like she might be able to make a little something on the side by a little
Yeah, that's her
blackmail.
mistake, right?
You don't blackmail people because you're going to end up dead in an Agatha Christie novel,
Pretty much.
pretty much. Um, but there was a very dramatic scene, right, where
Hmm.
I think I just liked this change of scenery because I could envision like the terrace,
Hmm.
just like in that Joan Hickson
Oh
adaptation,
yeah.
where they're all just kind of out there, and then here
Hmm.
come the steps up to the main terrace from the
Hmm.
beach and the woods there or whatever,
Hmm.
and here comes Molly walking up with blood all over her,
Oh yeah.
and like, what have I done? I don't know. And then they go out, and Tim's like, "Yeah, it's Victoria. She's been, murdered. She's been stabbed."
Now remind me, prior to that, has there been mention that Molly? There has been mention, right? Because Tim has said to Molly, "Have you had another one of your dreams?"
Bad
Uh,
dreams.
uh, uh,
Hmm.
I'm trying to think if that's the only reference to her maybe having issues with either losing time, or having some issue
Yeah,
with,
blacking out.
well, that, yeah, blacking out for reasons other than drinking. I mean, just losing time in the day. Like, how did I get here? Why do I have different clothes on? And
Hmm.
then how long have her potentially her mental faculties been questioned?
Yeah.
Let's say.
Well, and then it
What
gets
and
out
what's
that
the source of it?
between and this is why they know each other for so long. Evelyn,
Oh, that's right.
she's like, well,
Yeah.
in that family, she doesn't really speak to her family. My hair's sticking up. Is because there might be some mental illness running in Molly's family.
Mm-hmm.
But Evelyn's trying to help. I also have to say that I was really suspicious of Evelyn or Evelyn.
Yeah.
I thought maybe she might have been the killer,
Yes.
but I
Yeah.
was wrong.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was wrong on all counts. I did not guess right. I,
Mhm.
so I, although I guessed right in the last book, now I'm a big zero on this one,
Yeah.
big goose egg.
Hmm.
So all I see is Daisy's belly when I look down. So
So then,
yeah.
so they're talking, and again, this issue of high blood pressure is brought up, and Raphael says, "No, where'd you hear that from? That's not true. Palgrave told me himself that his figures were pretty good for a man his age, and that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a concern." And so you have kind of have Raphael and Donna Pleasance does a wonderful job
I know we're gonna
being
get to that.
pulled into
Yeah.
the this communication, whereas before he had been this reclusive and very hostile
Oh,
kind
very.
of
Yeah.
individual
Very
who is very
nasty.
prickly and deliberately so. And now, of course, he's as desperate for tea as the rest of them, and so he starts talking,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
Marple doesn't back down from him. You know, are you talking to me? Like
Mm-hmm.
that was a great scene, and so then you have kind of the setting up as things get even more suspicious after the death of Victoria, and
Mm-hmm.
now what's going on with what's Kendall's first name again? Oh, Molly.
Molly.
Yeah, and then you have the two powerhouses pairing up because he's got contacts and Marple has theories.
Yes.
So
Now you know that it's Molly who reveals it to Evelyn that she's been waking up or coming to in places that, and when I read that, I'm like, holy crap!
that's really, yeah,
Because
that's
how
really
do
bad.
you even make that happen? As it's explained later, I don't think it's a great
Mhm.
explanation, but I'm like, so is someone carrying her to places and like she's waking up? It seems like you're going to extreme ends to either make her seem crazy or to pin these things on her. But anyway, she tells Evelyn like, and then Evelyn's like, oh my god, I think she's cracking up. Like you need to see a psychiatrist.
Yes. Yeah.
Um. Anyway, but when Victoria shows up, dead,
Mhm.
Miss Marple on page 121 says something has got to be done.
Mhm.
She says that a few times in different
Mhm.
places. She's like, we have to do something. We don't just sit around and wait.
Mhm.
Um, you know. So she kind of begins her own little sleuthing
Mhm.
with Mr. Raphael,
Mhm.
and I do love their exchanges.
Mhm.
They're such fun. You can see that they would you know, they would get along. I think they do get along, even though they kind of give each other
They'd be the coolest grandparents, I think. The coolest grandparents because they don't quite fight,
yes.
but there is a battle of wills. The other,
Hmm.
as far as writing goes, I think the best conversations in the book are between Marple and the vicar's sister.
It was the best.
They had wonderful conversations. That was written so well, and the unspoken conversations that
Mm,
go between the two women when they're like, "We'll talk about this later," and then
yeah.
there's the vicar or whatever going, "Oh, you know that actually never happens," and the two women are like, "Yeah, right,
So I have it right
whatever."
here. It was a scene where I understood why she wrote it, and I understood yes, that probably was the case, women of a certain time, but it galled me anyway. So it's Joan and Miss Marple sitting on the beach. We're about
That's a
a
good scene
hundred,
too. Yeah.
150 pages in, and Miss the Canon
Yeah.
is kind of dozing. They think he's sleeping, and they start to gossip a little bit on the side. And finally,
Mhm.
he just erupts. But I liked how they were going back and forth, trading the tea,
Yeah.
as it were.
Yeah.
But then he goes, Joan. The Canon sat up. He looked belligerent. I really don't like to hear this kind of ill-natured gossip being repeated. We've always set our faces against that kind of thing. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, and what is more, think no evil. That should be the motto of every Christian man and woman. The two women sat in silence.
They're like, yeah.
They were rebuked.
Mm.
And in deference to their training,
Yes.
they deferred to the criticism of a man. And I said, F that.
Mm. They kept quiet, but their brains were still going.
Right.
And I'm going to tell her this, and I'm going to mention that. And she raised a really good point. And you know that if it was present day, they'd be texting each other as he was
Right.
like getting in, lambasting them.
But it says here, but inwardly, they were frustrated,
Yeah.
irritated, and quite unrepentant.
Yeah.
So eat it.
Absolutely.
Eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a fun scene. You can see the two women getting closer and closer as the topics get
Yes.
naughtier and
Well,
just even more sort of the things we don't talk about in
right.
polite society.
I mean, so we kind of jumped around there, and I see that we're already at 30 minutes. But we'll get to the other things going on in the story are the revelation that Colonel Hillingdon has been having an affair with Lucky. And that probably Greg knows about it. Evelyn certainly does. So there's, how Christy throws in those herrings,
Yeah,
right? Those
she
red
does.
herrings,
Yeah.
like jealousy, what's going on. Um, so there's hints of that going on. There's also, we get a backstory about Gregory Dyson's first wife that
Oh yeah.
apparently was a relation, a distant cousin to Lucky, but she died. And he married Lucky within a month of that. So people were like,
Yeah.
something's going on there.
He had a history
Yes, and
of
then
trading up.
what?
Of trading
Oh,
up, sorry.
okay. So then we had that really um, dramatic argument with Evelyn and the Colonel, where he's like, she made me do something I didn't want to do. After she's like, yeah, I've known about you two, and I'm sure Greg knows about it, but he acts like he doesn't. Um, and then he tells her, he's like, she made me buy back when Gregory Dyson's first wife was still alive. He's like,
Mhm.
she made me get this stuff from the pharmacy. I didn't know what it was, but she's the one that administered it to her, and he's like, I'm done. Let's So he's like, I'm done with her, but I could kill her. So that comes in some more red herrings and
Mhm.
things like this. So the second, again, more than is always more than one murder.
Yeah.
So Victoria is dead.
Right.
And then we get the big meantime, Molly Kendall is falling to pieces
Yep.
and seeing things and hearing things,
Yep.
apparently.
Yep.
Miss Marple is talking to Raphael and really trying to figure out,
Hiding out in bushes.
hiding out in bushes.
Mhm.
She's seeing Jackson snooping through Mr. Raphael's
His
things.
behavior is suspicious as well.
Sure is.
And yes, he went through the paperwork to find out where he stood in relation to Raphael's inheritance, or where he would stand upon the death of Mr. Raphael.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Raphael had a great sort of no, they get the money, they have built-in incentives to see me live a long life,
Yeah.
and here's why.
Yeah.
He's a clever guy.
Yes. Yes, he is.
Mhm.
So I guess as we wrap up the book itself, I mean, the
Mhm.
book, it was a very fun read. It went very quickly.
Mhm.
I did not guess it, but in the end, the body is found. A body is found after someone said Molly's missing.
Mhm.
Okay, so they're setting you up like Molly's missing, and then they find in the water,
Yeah.
um, with the green shawl of Molly's.
Mhm. And the
Um,
blonde hair.
so we figured it was her, and she
Yep.
finally just offed herself because she's just like, I can't take it. I feel like I'm losing it.
Mhm.
Uh, but then she's flipped over, and it's Lucky
Yeah.
because they saw the roots in her hair,
Right.
right?
Right.
Miss Marple did.
The women had been somewhat cattily talking about dyed hair.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it turns out that's what, yeah. So it was Lucky who had
Mhm.
taken or had bought one of those shawls that
That
Molly had.
candle, yeah, Molly had said, "Oh, they're on sale
Yeah, right, right.
in the hotel."
So that's like, okay, then why is Lucky being targeted? But Miss Marple is telling Mr. Raphael, he's like, well, it's done now, and she's like, no, it isn't, and
Mm-hmm.
there's gonna be another murder,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe she said that before Lucky happened because she said the killer's still trying.
Mm-hmm.
And she's racking her brains trying to remember something that Palgrave had said. Um, She's just so
Palgrave had said
canny.
it was, or pardon me, yeah, Palgrave had said it was a man too. So they do
Yeah.
know it's a man. So
So,
even the introduction of Molly is kind of a sleight of hand.
mm,
Uh, anyway,
yeah, and then Jackson mentions Miss Marple catches Jackson in Molly's room when she's in there watching over her
kind
sleeping.
of creepy.
Kind of creepy. He's looking at her face creams. And then she catches him in the act, but he recovers quite well and
Yeah,
goes into this huge diatribe. And she's like, "Have you've been talking to Major Palgrave, right?
yeah.
Because he filled your head with all this stuff. Because he's basically saying there's certain creams that you can use or ointments that will make you hallucinate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, the spit from a frog. I have no idea. But it's just like you just rub it on your skin and then boom, you're seeing things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um anyway, long story short, I feel like I'm losing you in the frame.
Sorry,
We gotta get you in the frame.
sorry,
We're off center.
sorry.
Okay, just you sit here. Um but in the end, after all this is going on, and they set a trap,
Mm-hmm.
she's figured out who the killer is. And it's Tim Kendall.
Yeah,
The guy I thought was just like Mr. Milquetoast. I should have
yeah.
known. I should have known it was Mr.
The
Milquetoast.
guy who was like, "What would I do without you?
Yeah.
You're the best thing that's ever happened." But he was on the upward climb as well.
He was, and they make mention of the fact that Molly had been in love with or had been with some guy before him, and wanted to marry him, was engaged to him, but her
That's
parents
right.
said no.
That's right.
And then they said Tim came along. Well, that was some subterfuge
Yeah,
because the one
they
that the
had known it.
parents didn't
Yeah,
like and thought he was bad news was Tim
yeah.
Kendall. So, and he was trying
They were a
to,
bit shifty, both of them
yeah,
together.
yeah. So it was a fairly well done mystery, kind of plot wise, you know. Um,
But did Tim have his eye on Raphael's assistant now because he
no,
knew how
no,
much? Who did he have his eye on?
no, Esther had her eye on Tim Kendall, but she didn't know he was bad news. I think he was using her.
Yeah,
Oh no, he wanted to get with her
he
because
did. Yeah.
Raphael was
Thank
going
you.
to leave
Thank you.
50,000 pounds. You're
Thank you.
right. I'm
So
sorry.
she would have been the next rung in the ladder as well.
Yes, it's all because Jackson opened. With his snooping, he found out that she was going to get a large sum. Told it to Esther, and then Esther told it to Tim, and Tim's like, "Oh, here's my next wife.
Yeah,
Here's my next mark.
right.
I'm going to off Molly, and then I'm going to get that with you, and then who knows? You'll be the next one down the road. I'm going to kill."
And Molly's going to have another, lapse of memory and find herself face down in a puddle.
Yeah, yeah. So he killed her by accident, right?
Killed
Sorry,
Lucky.
killed Lucky by accident,
Yeah.
but either way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I thought it was a good mystery, and I loved how it ended.
It went at a fast clip.
Yep.
Yeah,
Um. Oh, and I like the parting of Miss Marple and Raphael, and I hope this will come into play
it does.
because he says he speaks to her in Latin.
Mm-hmm.
And they just had a really good chemistry in this book.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Hickson adaptation, which we'll get into right next, we do not need to spend a lot of time on the Julie Mackenzie version.
There was nothing.
They had the great chemistry themselves, but he says to her, Ave Caesar, nos moratori te salutamus. And she's like, I don't know much Latin. And he's like, but you understand that. And she goes, yes.
She's lying.
No, she said no more. She knew quite well what he was telling her. She's like, it has been a great pleasure to know you, she said. So I know it says Hail Caesar. Morituri seems like death.
Or
And I
stuff.
salute you. Salutamus. Death, salute. I salute you in death or whatever.
We'll look it up.
Some of those
We'll look
keywords
it
I
up.
can recognize is a variation on death and salute or salutation. Anyway,
They both go off to gladiator school, and that's where the sequel follows up.
so a fun book.
Yep.
I was really looking forward to the adaptations. The first one we watched was the Julie Mackenzie version. Julie or Julia?
Julie.
Julia Mackenzie. I like her a
I
lot.
was young enough to be in this adaptation as this Marple.
Yeah, because she was creeping around the bungalows, and it was real fun. They had a big green screen. I know they did film on a beach somewhere.
Cape Town.
Yes, but then they put up a bad green screen of something of like a Caribbean view, and it was just really Caribbean view, and it was really distracting. But other than that, I liked some of the cast. I liked the one who played Lucky. Fun fact, she was in a horror movie, one of my favorite horror movies, The
The
Descent.
Descent.
She was one
Right.
of the spelunkers.
Mm-hmm.
Loved her. I
Yeah.
think her name is Miana Buring or something like
You
that.
point her out every time you see her in
I
something.
recognize her immediately. I'm like, oh, Descent
Yeah.
chick. I love her.
She looks great.
She looks great. She
Hmm.
played Lucky really well. Now, the Lucky in the Joan Hickson version, which I
Oh.
liked overall,
Oh
was
my God. Wait a second. Wait
horrible.
a second.
Oh,
Hang on. So there were two issues with the Hickson version. There
yep,
was the great chemistry.
yeah.
We haven't gone back to check the remastered DVDs. So we were just, see, this is where this is going. So we just watched the Hickson versions on BritBox. Now, what I'm hoping is that when I go back and look, and I'll leave a comment, is that they remix the audio on the remastered Blu-rays because it was like the night of the cicada um, in these recordings. And so people were talking and they were like, hey, I really think this person was murdered. And the bugs were so well mic'd that you couldn't
Every
hear
bug
a
was mine.
damn thing. It was ridiculous. I had never picked up on it before, but
But
we were laughing our heads off at it.
it goes to show you the difference between the two adaptations because
Yeah.
Hickson, they actually went, where did they go? Barbados or
They
something?
went to Barbados.
They were actually in the jungle filming this.
Hmm.
Now, you said Cape Town for Julia Mackenzie's. Well,
Yeah.
they must not have those bugs there
Oh my
because
God.
when they were filming Hickson's at night on the terraces, I don't even know what the name of this insect is, or maybe it's a conglomeration, but it was like,
Oh,
and
wait,
it
did I
was like
get the.
over and over and
Oh,
over, and it's
that
like,
was
how do
terrible.
you sleep? Scenario.
Yes. So the sound of the bugs, if you haven't watched the adaptations and you want a good laugh, watch the adaptations because you'll miss half the dialogue. Um, what was the other thing about the Hickson version?
Well, we didn't
Oh,
like Lucky and Greg. They had horrible American accents. Although, were they
I've
supposed to
forgotten
be?
it. There were two things that were, the adaptations were interesting because they both inserted, again, fictitiously elements of voodoo
Oh, nice.
into both of the productions in a way that was kind of in Hicks, not in Hickson's place, in the Mackenzie version was sort of racially weird, just racially weird to throw some stuff in.
I was like, was this necessary?
But because it just came across as awkward and offensive to
Well,
everybody.
yeah, the Julie Mackenzie version took so many liberties and created
Yeah,
things out of whole cloth, like there was a voodoo doll
yeah,
that was like placed on the door of people. This was
that's
not
right.
in the book.
Yeah, and even Hickson, she ends up hanging out and having tea with
Was a voodoo queen.
Victoria's aunt or whatever. And
Okay, well, basically she met with
that was
like,
really nice. Like they were checking out their gardens, and
sure.
so it was the same old conversation between women of a certain age. How are the roses growing, and do you have time for a cup of tea?
That was
That was
nice,
nice. It
but it was
wasn't in the
made.
book though.
Yeah, it was made up.
Yeah,
But
trying
then
to
she
think. What
met
else.
with like a witch doctor woman,
Yeah.
and
Oh, that's right. She did.
and the woman was just overly accented. I'm like, this is insulting.
Well, I don't care about the accents. That there are accents, but it's
No,
just it was awkward. Um,
it just
I'm trying to think
it.
what else was wrong with the Hickson one.
Well, you
Oh,
keep thinking, and I'll keep
that's
talking.
what it was. Okay, so while Pleasance did a great job as Raphael, Nemesis was filmed before this book, and so they had already cast a different Raphael. And so when we come to Nemesis, and if you watch the Hickson adaptation, you don't see Pleasance again.
See, I haven't. Okay,
Yeah,
did
and
not
you
know
don't
that.
see his assistant again because she shows up in the book as well. And there's one other character that shows up.
I'm really curious to know where this is going to go because it's called Nemesis, and yeah, there is a scene at the end of the book where, she cracks up Raphael because she shows up at his in his room with her fuzzy scarf over her head, her pink fuzzy, going, "I am Nemesis," and it's just like maybe she's been licking some frogs because I don't
Uh,
know what she's doing.
she's enjoying the Jamaican rum. That's what it is.
Yeah, and then later on, I'm like, so Nemesis. I hope they don't come to like he'll be the bad guy in Nemesis, and she'll be
I'm not going to tell you.
okay. So anyway, so the Julia Mackenzie thing was just a dumpster fire, really. Although they had some nice faces in there, and
Hmm.
but they changed it up so much.
There wasn't a lot to go on,
There
really.
wasn't. And the Hickson version was way more close to the book. They included the Caribbean Caribbean captain of police who
And
was
he was great because he knew um,
Clithering.
thank you,
And
Henry Clithering. That's right.
although I don't think it's in the book,
I don't think that is either,
but he
but it was a
says
nice
I've heard of
touch.
this Marple.
I mean,
I've never
she.
read
Of
it.
course you have. Of course you have.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think. What do I want to say about that? The one thing that again they didn't include the Cannon's sister, and I think that
Oh,
that was probably because they were making the Pleasance role bigger. I in in going through this book, I did think that Marple was probably at her most manipulative because you
mm,
do get to hear what she's thinking. And she's even embarrassing herself with how flighty and bullshitty she's sounding to try and strike up conversations with different characters. Like she knows she sounds like an idiot when
mm-hmm.
she's dithering and, oh, I didn't get the right wool, I'll be right back. And everybody's like, like fleas off a dog trying to get away from her. Um, but I didn't like the idea that she was so manipulative, even though everything's a manipulation when you talk about relationships or
Yeah.
transactions between people. But the other thing I didn't like was oh, what was the other thing I didn't like? Oh, that she was kind of unable to scoot ahead mentally or feel comfortable in a place unless she had mapped who was who. And that almost came down to
Oh,
like
the
a
mapping.
like a like a monk type cognitive hitch in his giddy up where that character is so sort of tied into his OCD and how he sees things and how he has to pattern things that he's not functional until he has certain things in place.
Mm-hmm.
And I never got that sense from Marple that she was so regimented in how things had to be laid out for her cognitively in order to see people correctly or accurately. I thought it was just kind of a nice happenstance that she would sort of be so used to playing the part of passive observer or impassive observer that she'd be like, oh, so and so, that they just remind me of the way they walk, the way they laugh, the way they whatever. But this whole notion that she can't feel comfortable until she has basically mapped who's who, and on top of you know needing to make sense of the world in the mirror cracked, it kind of points to her having a little more cognitive hiccups than I kind of thought she might.
Well, but she is of an advanced age,
Yeah.
and this might be a way for her at an even with the mind like a bacon slicer,
Oh, I did like that
as they
too.
called that in
Yeah.
the Hickson
Yeah.
version. That she's got such a vast life experience. She's got categories of people, all right.
Right.
She's got standard things that she can hold up to say, let's see if this matches. You know what
Oh,
I'm
she's
saying?
got like a Rolodex. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think it's a fault of hers.
Yeah.
I think it's a helpful way with the life that she's lived, the many people that she's come across, the crimes that she's helped solve. Why would you not try to
So it's
take
kind of
these
a
things
shorthand as
and
opposed
make
to,
it
yeah.
shorthand? And I think more 9 times out of 10 it helps her. You know, there could be the crime that she's never come across before, and she wouldn't be able to do that. But yeah, but I
Well,
see.
see, now that's interesting because I actually thought that that would be a more interesting story. If you had all of these strangers at a hotel and these deaths occurred, instead of all of these people who, through Star Wars and because the universe is this big, knew each other.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
But it's Christie, right? So even when you think you have a handle on her, you don't.
Hmm.
And even when you do have the right killer,
Hmm.
she manages to surprise you with either the writing or something that
Yeah.
she throws in. And I think that that's the measure of her longevity. I really do.
She's just amazing. I'm so excited to read more of her novels, her standalone
Hmm.
novels, as well as revisiting Poirot in the future. I know we've only
We
got
have to do
two more.
Poirot now. We
We
have
have
to.
to do Poirot.
We'll do them even if
We will.
it'll be like views five, and we'll be hitting refresh. We'll
It
be all
will
of
be
the fives.
because really these are like the lowest ranked videos, but we're doing it for a very small subset of people who love Agatha
Thanks for
Christie.
hanging in there.
Thanks for
And I'm
being
sorry,
with us
I'm
on
not
this
I'm not
journey.
down today. When Sinead O'Connor died, I something around here in my chest moved. and it kind of has stayed out of place a little bit since then. And so I haven't been the party animal that I normally am.
And I certainly haven't either, but for
Mm,
different reasons.
it's hard news.
It's
Anyway,
it's a cultural thing too, yeah.
and a generational thing. She was definitely.
Well, we can share this because I felt that way about a cultural thing
Oh,
in a
with Prince.
general with Prince. That really ripped me up because I grew up. He was such a fixture in my background,
Yeah.
and we went to see Purple Rain,
So unexpected, though, too.
and Prince was unexpected. And to me, I thought he was a musical Beethoven of
Oh,
our
he
time.
was.
This guy
Absolutely.
was just
Yeah.
once in a century.
Yeah.
You get someone who can
Yeah.
just, he was a genius. I don't care that it wasn't classical music. I'm saying this guy was a Beethoven of his own. Okay,
If you wanna go
Mozart.
to YouTube and look up Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Knocking on Heaven's Door, I think
Mm,
with Prince and Tom Petty.
just gives you the chills.
At some point, Prince just takes over the guitar,
I mean,
the main guitar, and
mhm.
Petty just steps back like, I just have to watch this
Once in
guy.
a century.
Unbelievable, unbelievable.
So when he died,
Yeah,
I and we had just met around that time,
we
and we
did.
were talking over the phone about that. And I'm like, this has really rocked me. So
Hmm.
I understand,
Yeah.
and then you being Irish and Dublin, was she did she come from a Dublin
Hmm. Oh yeah,
or
we. I
yeah.
think. Yeah, I mean, she was more Temple Oak or Dunleary. Sorry, I was
Mm,
Tala for her house.
yeah.
But it's a small area. Anyway,
So
the
there's just a lot
stories we could
of
tell,
people,
but
sad news lately, and then
yeah,
then you got the fires in Hawaii, and life has just been really trying lately for a lot of people.
it hasn't made me really want to sit down and either read or listen to a book.
So we're a
But
little late with this as a result,
yeah,
and we apologize for that. I'm sure you
sorry
guys
about
all
that.
go through that where things come up, and you're just like,
And the book was fine. It wasn't the book. The story is great, and
yeah,
I think it's very it's well paced.
pace.
If parts of it seem familiar, again, it's Christie. I mean, you can't have everything unique every single time.
Yeah.
But I do wonder now, what are the two books that she was coming off that were viewed as failures?
I wonder. Well,
I'm gonna look it up
yeah. I
and
think
post it as
there's a
well.
biography on
Well, even
by
Wikipedia.
Lucy Worsley on
Hmm.
Agatha Christie, which I think you and I would behoove us to read or
I'll
listen
get that.
to.
I'll get it.
Yeah, and just to get some more, because it'll help us as we're doing our podcast as we proceed through the last of these Marple books, and as we go into the Poirot. We're going to go through all of Agatha Christie's,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, if you guys are
If
ready
we
to,
live that long,
if we live that long
we'll
to
be
keep making these
120
videos.
going, I think she has a point.
Yeah.
No, actually, it'll be us like down here like this. I think she has a point. Anyway, um, shoot. No, in Wikipedia, for each of the different entries, it will tell you what the preceding work is and what the next
Okay.
piece published
Well,
was.
I can't imagine why The Mirror Cracked wouldn't have been received well. That
Oh
was
yeah, yeah.
brilliant.
No, I have to imagine it's not a Marple thing. I think they
Oh,
were
it was like
few
a
and far between.
stand-alone or something.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll find out. But anyway, it was a good book. I'd say 3.5, just because. What did I say? Three? I'm just not
You
in the mood
said
for it right
three
now.
and a half,
It's a good
and
book,
I
though.
said four. And now the next one is at Bertram's Hotel.
It's a very good book. It's a very good
I
story.
really enjoyed the ending though of the Joan Hickson adaptation because you see her arrive back in rainy England, and
Yeah.
Raymond is bringing her home from the airport, and they you can see like at the garden, and it's raining softly, soft rain, right? So
Down the
beautiful.
back of your neck, you're
Yeah, and
saturated.
he's like, she's standing out on the veranda or whatever as it's raining, and he's like sitting down. He's like, yeah, tea's ready, and his whole China tea service, and it's just like ideal. And he's like, oh, sorry, it's not what the weather couldn't be better. She goes, oh, I love it,
I
and
love
I
it.
was like,
Pass me a Jaffa cake. I love it.
it just give me the tea, scones, the rain, and a book, and I'm
Is that all?
happy.
And the murder, the light murder village, the murder light village,
The
the
Agatha Raisin Cotswolds, yeah.
murder-ish village.
It's never
So,
gruesome. It's just fun. It's fun to solve.
so what do you think about Raymond? Because it always seems like when Marple mentions Raymond, she's like, no, Raymond. Like he never really quite gets everything right. He's like,
I'd like to know
It
more
always
about him.
it seems like she's like, no, he tries his hardest, but I didn't want this, e-bike for Christmas, or say I
No,
didn't want
yeah.
this,
He's
master class in rock climbing.
he's a well-meaning nephew from a younger generation that
Yeah.
wants to take care of his aunt, his great aunt, or whatever she is to him,
In
and
Nemesis,
and I think it's wonderful.
in Nemesis, you actually see him alongside his aunt, and it's quite.
Mm.
He comes across as kind of
I'm
harmless.
getting really excited to read Nemesis, even though we still have At Bertram's Hotel next.
Nemesis is the would
Is
have
that
been the last one. Would have been the last one, but she released it in a different order.
so? Which one should we? We're reading them in the correct order,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so we're still doing At Bertram's Hotel. Please be
Mm-hmm.
reading that for this
With
month.
Dolly Bantry again.
Dolly Bantry. This was a fun little excursion off to the tropics. It was different. It took you out of England. It took
Yeah.
you to the beach. It had I don't know. I liked it. I liked her banter with Raphael. I liked all of it,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't like my favorite. But I thought it was good, solid
Smaller
entry.
story.
It was a smaller story, but I thought it was a solid entry, and that's why I get 4 out of 5. And we are almost at an hour on this
Yeah,
podcast
I think
here.
sorry, my last thought.
Please share what they.
Raphael and Marple spin-off would have been
Oh
outstanding.
yes.
Would have been great.
You know what I was thinking while watching this is like, wouldn't it be fun if now I haven't read that book of the 12 short stories that
Oh yeah,
other
it's
people have
good.
written. I want to because I know that there's an author who is um, writing new Hercule Poirot mysteries,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Why won't someone tackle young Miss Marple? I
There.
want I
Yeah.
want to see what she was like
Yeah.
in her heyday. Well, yeah, we're going back in time, which I like historically.
Yes.
I want to see. I bet you there's tons of adventures with Miss Marple. Like she didn't just start to solve murders when she was
No.
in her 60s. I bet you there's a lot of stories there that a good writer could tease out.
Yeah.
I want to see young Miss Marple. Raise your hand.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think
Yeah.
if the estate is a little looser with the
Oh
adaptations,
yes, the estate. Yeah.
because they have to make more money than God every year.
Yeah.
I can't imagine them being short of cash at all ever. Um, it is a whole expanse of her life that hasn't been looked at all.
And I think that it is just prime, like it's prime real estate that no one's claimed.
Oh yeah,
It's like move in on that,
yeah,
do it, make
yeah.
it yours because there's an endless amount of stories you could tell.
Also, how did she meet Clittering and all of that? Like, how did she meet some of the? You know what? Let me take that back. I didn't say that.
It's clear.
They know what it is.
It's been a long week, you guys.
It's only Tuesday.
We're
Is it
tired.
Monday or Tuesday?
We're supposed to
Monday.
touch heads because
Oh,
we're
it's
so exhausted.
anyway.
Okay,
It's a good book. We
it was a
enjoyed it.
great book. We really appreciate you guys being here with us for this journey. Again, we thank you for your patience and here's to better news all around the world and praying for people in Hawaii and everywhere that who are just suffering.
Yeah. I'll be glad when the weather gets a little cooler. That's for sure.
Oh, I'm so ready for fall. Well, today we had a beautiful day, you
Well,
guys.
I mean, just for the wildfires
Oh,
and everything
yes.
else. But yeah, it's
But cooler weather's
summers are
nice.
hard around the world now, and they're lasting longer and longer, and we all
Yeah.
know this. Anyway,
Yeah. But
happy to be here.
happy to be here. We are ready to tackle at Bertram's Hotel here in a few weeks.
Yes.
So,
Maybe we'll make some scones and eat them while we're talking.
and have a cup of tea.
Woo!
I should actually have a proper cup of tea here.
Instead of Diet Mountain Dew.
Well, that's what you drink.
That's what I drink. And I'm still sleepy.
I found a new flavor that I like. It is raspberry dark chocolate, vitamin water, zero sugar.
And it sounds awful, but it is very
It's-
tasty.
It sounds awful, you guys. I almost didn't buy this, and I'm like, well, but it's pink. How much like chocolate can it taste like?
It doesn't taste like chocolate.
It doesn't,
No.
but it tastes delicious, and I love it. And I need the electrolytes. So,
Anyway,
on that note, all right, guys, thanks for joining us here on the History Shelf for our Marple a Month series. Join us next month, or at the end of the month, for At Bertram's Hotel.
yeah, enjoy, guys. Hope this finds everybody well. And I
Yes.
promise I won't be sliding off screen.
Yeah, we got to get the framing thing ready.
I need a taller seat.
Yeah. All right.
I'm actually taller than Peggy, just so you know. Anyway,
Get out of here. He's not.
I am. Okay.
Okay, until next time. Oh, I almost stole Bill Rutenberg's Happy Reading, but
Oh, do it.
that's his
Do it and see
line.
if he notices, because he'd have to watch the whole thing in order to
Yeah,
be like,
here's a
hey,
test to see if Bill's watching.
nobody tell him.
So until next time, BookTube, happy reading.
Can't believe he did that.
Love it.
Bye,
I
guys.
love his sign off.
Yeah.
Bye.
See ya.